I recently tried the Backfire Ranger X2. In this video, I'm gonna do 3 things. First, I'll do a quick unboxing while I tell you some stuff about the board. Next, I'll tell you the stuff that Backfire wants me to tell you, like the improvements made to the battery, turbo mode, etc. And then finally, I'm gonna tell you what I want to tell you about the Backfire Ranger X2. The Backfire Ranger X2 is similar to the Ranger X1, but with all of my major complaints about the X1 resolved. A number of other improvements have been made as well. The Ranger X1 was the board that Max and I used on our road trip last year. We have a video series about it called E-Skating Wild West China. You should take a look, but go ahead and skip to episode 6 or 7 because the first few episodes are kind of boring. During that road trip, we spent a lot of time with the Ranger X1. We took the boards through various types of conditions, smooth roads, bumpy dirt paths, and they held up through the entire trip. We had a great time, and overall, I really liked the board. But it did have some significant flaws. It was really heavy, the brakes kind of sucked, the acceleration was mediocre, and the wheels could have been a lot better. All of those issues have been resolved on the Ranger X2. So now let's talk about the Ranger X2, starting with the thing that Backfire wants me to emphasize. Like boosted in X-Way, the Ranger X2 uses a 12S battery. Most production electric skateboards, including the Ranger X1, use a 10S battery. With a 12S battery, the Ranger X2 uses higher voltage, making it slightly more efficient. Like the Backfire G2T and the upcoming G3 Plus, the Ranger X2 has the turbo feature. When you press the turbo button on the remote, you get increased torque for 30 seconds, followed by 30 seconds of cooldown. The Ranger X1 was 14.8 kilograms, quite heavy and kind of inconvenient if you frequently have to pick up the board. For the Ranger X2, Backfire has reduced the weight in the wheels, the motors, and the battery, bringing the total weight down to just 10.8 kilograms. Sometime after the Ranger X1 came out, Backfire released much better front wheels. On the Ranger X2, the back wheels have now also been improved, and it is a major improvement. The new hub motors are now smaller and lighter, but also more powerful. And because they're smaller, they can now use the same thick tires that are used on the front wheels. Compared to the Ranger X1, the new tires are thicker by 2 centimeters. That is a lot, and you can feel the difference when you're riding. While the Ranger X1 was a very comfortable ride, I wouldn't describe it as exciting. The acceleration felt kind of mellow, and the brakes were too weak. But on the Ranger X2, both the acceleration and brakes have been majorly improved. It's kind of like switching from a family SUV to a sports car, but without sacrificing comfort. Now that I've covered the stuff that Backfire wants me to cover, I'm gonna tell you how I really feel. There are 3 things I want to talk about: hub motors, ride comfort, and double kingpin trucks. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I generally prefer belt drive over hub motors. On hub motors, the urethane is usually way too thin, and that affects both grip and ride comfort. With belt drive, you can change the wheels. You can change to bigger or smaller wheels, harder or softer, depending on what you want to do. So generally, I prefer belt drive. But there is a major benefit to using hub motors on an all-terrain board. A big selling point of all-terrain boards is that you can go off-roading. Just look at any advertisement for an all-terrain board. They always show the board on a dirt trail in the middle of nowhere. What they don't show you is stuff getting in the belts and clogging the gears. That can happen more on some boards than others, but it's not likely to happen on most hub motors. So for off-roading situations where you'll encounter dirt, gravel, or sand, using hub motors is actually beneficial. My main issue with hub motors, which is the thin urethane, doesn't apply to the Ranger X2. These tires are not thin. They are way thicker than your standard hub motor urethane. So even though I prefer belt drive for most boards made for the street, in situations where you'll encounter dirt and sand, these hub motor wheels are not a bad solution. Despite using hub motors, this is the most comfortable electric skateboard I've ever ridden. Previously, it was the Ranger X1, but the X2 is even more comfortable because of the thick tires. The flexi deck is the same as the one on the X1, and it does a way better job at absorbing bumps compared to stiff decks. I imagine a board with pneumatic tires and a flexi deck may be more comfortable, but I can't imagine someone riding the Ranger X2 and wishing that it were more comfortable. The comfort level on the Ranger X2 is already way up there. As I've said in previous videos, I'm not a fan of double kingpin trucks, but Backfire's setup is a little bit different from other boards that I've tried, and it makes a huge difference in how the board turns and carves. With the other boards that I've tried that use double kingpin trucks, the turning behavior is very not linear. It's like if I'm gradually increasing the sharpness of the turn, the board would suddenly turn more than I would expect. And it's not because the bushings were too soft or not tight enough. They were all using 95A or harder bushings. If you only use one board, you could probably get used to that turning behavior pretty quickly. But most of my boards use reverse kingpin, so for me, double kingpin just feels really unnatural. But on the Ranger, it's different. This applies to both the Ranger X1 and X2. The turning behavior feels much more linear, and so I feel a lot more confident on this board. In fact, at one point, I got a little bit too confident. Carving on the Ranger feels awesome to me, and I feel way more in control on this board than the other all-terrain boards I've tried this year. To be honest, I didn't know how good it was until I tried the other boards. I have a theory as to why Backfire's double kingpin trucks feel better, but I need to experiment to be sure, so I don't want to say anything yet. And Randy from Backfire wouldn't tell me either. He said if I know, then I know, and if I don't know, he's not going to tell me. Anyway, very soon I'll be spending a lot of intimate time with the Ranger X2, so I'll get back to you with my final review in a few weeks. But basically, the Ranger X2 is a much better Ranger X1. If you like the X1, you'll probably like the X2 even more.